sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Ready for a deep dive into something you probably use every day but never think twice about?
Let me guess, you're talking about salt.
You got it. But we're not just talking about the stuff you sprinkle on your food. This is about sea salt rituals.
Ah, now that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole world of history and spiritual significance behind those little white crystals.
Exactly. It's more than just seasoning. It's been a symbol of purity, protection. I even read that in some cultures, salt was used as money.
It's true. Salt was a pretty valuable commodity back in the day.
I can imagine, but why? What made it so sought after?
Well, think about it. Before we had refrigerators, how did people keep food from spoiling?
Salt, right.
Exactly. Salt was essential for preserving food. It meant the difference between having food security or facing shortages, you know?
That makes sense. So it makes sense that salt would become associated with things like purity, keeping things from going bad.
Yeah, that's where its spiritual significance comes in. Because of those life-preserving qualities, salt took on a deeper, almost sacred meaning in different cultures.
And that's where we get into the whole world of sea salt rituals, right?
Precisely. These rituals have been practiced for centuries in all sorts of forms.
Okay, so let's break it down. What do these rituals actually look like?
Well, I think the common thread you'll find is the focus on cleansing, protection, purification.
Right, like trying to get rid of bad stuff and invite good things in.
Yeah, exactly. So you might see people sprinkling salt around their homes or maybe taking salt baths.
Oh, right, like those Epsom salt baths people are always talking about.
Exactly. And of course, there are the famous salt circles for protection, the kind you see in movies and stuff.
I was just thinking about that. The idea of salt repelling evil spirits, that seems to be a pretty common theme.
You're right. It pops up in a lot of different cultures. Like in Japanese Shinto tradition, for example, they often place salt at the entrance to a home or building.
Oh, to keep the bad spirits out.
That's the idea. But it's not just about keeping bad stuff away. It's also believed to attract good fortune and customers for businesses.
So it's like a double whammy, warding off the negative and inviting the positive.
Exactly. And in Buddhism, you see the practice of tossing salt over your shoulder after a funeral.
I've heard of that one. It's almost like a way of leaving the bad energy behind, like a cleansing ritual.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. But you know, it's not all about ghosts and ghouls. There's this whole other side of salt, a more positive side, tied to the idea of covenants.
Covenants, like agreements or promises.
Yeah, exactly. Sharing salt has long been a symbol of friendship, loyalty, you know, that kind of bond. And there's even this concept of a covenant of salt in the Bible.
Oh, interesting. What does that entail, a covenant of salt? What makes that so significant?
Well, just picture this. You and I are sharing salt, something so vital for our well-being, even our survival.
Right, that shared need creates a kind of connection.
Yeah, that's what it symbolizes. It's a deeper connection, like a commitment to each other's welfare, an unbreakable promise, as lasting as salt itself.
That's a powerful image. So we've got salt representing purity, protection, promises. It's amazing how something so basic can have so much meaning. And these rituals, they've been passed down for generations, haven't they?
They have, but you're right. They probably haven't stayed exactly the same. Things change and adapt over time.
I was just thinking that. So how have things evolved? How have these rituals changed throughout history?
Well, think about medieval Europe. Back then, salt was a popular ingredient in charms and amulets, you know, for warding off witches and all sorts of perceived threats.
Oh, wow. So even in those times, people were using salt for protection. It's like that basic human desire to feel safe and secure.
Exactly. And, you know, that desire hasn't gone away. In fact, I'd say we're seeing a resurgence of interest in these ancient practices.
You're right. Like all the stuff about salt baths for detoxification and using salt to create harmonious environments. It seems like salt is having a bit of a moment right now.
It is, and I think it reflects a growing interest in holistic healing. You know, people are exploring alternative wellness practices, looking for ways to connect with something beyond the purely material world.
Right, but there are always skeptics, right? People who might roll their eyes at the idea of salt having any kind of mystical power.
Of course, and that's a valid perspective. We can't ignore the possibility of placebo effects, where the benefits might come from the belief itself, rather than any inherent property of the salt.
But even if someone isn't fully convinced about the spiritual side of things, isn't there still some value in the act of performing the ritual itself? Like it's about creating a sense of intention and taking a proactive step towards your own well-being.
Absolutely. And that's an important point to remember. Rituals, regardless of their specific form, can offer a sense of comfort, structure, even a feeling of connection to something larger than ourselves. And those are valuable things in any era.
So it's not just about the salt itself, it's about the meaning we imbue it with. It's fascinating how these practices bridge the gap between ancient traditions and modern needs. What do you find most intriguing about all of this?
For me, it's the resilience of these rituals. They've transcended cultural boundaries, historical periods. They just keep adapting and evolving. I think that speaks to something deeper in us, a human desire for safety, continuity, a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
That's beautifully put. It's like these rituals tap into a universal need for grounding and purpose.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And the beauty of these rituals is that they can be personalized, adapted to fit our individual needs and beliefs.
Right. So even if you've never considered yourself a ritual person, there might be something in these practices that resonates with you. Maybe it's about creating a sense of calm in your home or finding a way to symbolically release negativity. Whatever your intention, it seems like exploring these ancient traditions can offer a unique perspective on how we connect with ourselves and the world around us.
I couldn't agree more. It's about honoring the wisdom of the past while acknowledging our own unique needs and beliefs in the present.
And that's what makes this exploration so fascinating. It's not just about uncovering historical facts. It's about understanding how these rituals continue to speak to us today, offering a sense of grounding, purpose, and connection in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
Exactly. And that's a perfect segue into exploring some of the specific ways people are incorporating sea salt rituals into their lives today. Because it's not just about ancient history. It's about finding meaning and connection in the present moment.
So we've talked about how these rituals have been around forever, but how do they fit into modern life? I mean, can you picture someone in a tiny city apartment doing salt circles to keep out evil spirits?
Well, you might be surprised. The way people do them might have changed, but the ideas behind them are still relevant. Think about all the focus on self-care these days. Salt's a big part of that.
Oh yeah, good point. Like those Epsom salt baths, people swear by those for relaxing.
Exactly. It's like a modern version of those old purification rituals. And it's not just physical either. Lots of people believe salt can clear out bad energy from their homes, too.
That's right. Like those salt lamps everyone has, they do give off a nice vibe. Is that part of it?
It definitely adds to it, but some folks think they actually release negative ions or something. It's supposed to be good for your mood and energy.
Yeah.
Kind of like bringing nature indoors.
Creating a little peaceful space, I get that. But is there like real science behind this, or is it more of a belief thing?
That's the big question, isn't it? The science on salt's mystical powers is kind of shaky, but you can't deny that rituals themselves can have a positive effect.
Right. Even if it's just a placebo effect, if it helps, it helps.
Exactly. It's about taking control, creating a sense of order, which can be really comforting when life feels chaotic.
Taking charge of your well-being, even if it's symbolic.
That's it. Intentionality, self-care, those are important no matter what you believe.
So the ritual's as important as the salt itself, in a way. It's so cool how these things connect old traditions to modern needs.
I agree. What's really interesting to me is how adaptable they are. You don't need a rule book. You find what works for you.
So someone stressed out might focus on cleansing rituals, while someone else might use salt for meditation or just to make their home feel better.
Precisely. It's all about your intention, what you're hoping to achieve.
If you were going to try a sea salt ritual, what intention would you bring to it?
That's a good one. I think for me, it'd be about grounding. Life's so hectic, it's easy to feel lost, disconnected. Salt could be a way to get back to that feeling of stability, connection to something bigger.
I love that, using ancient practices to handle modern problems. It shows these rituals aren't just relics, they're tools for a better life now.
Exactly. And it's a journey anyone can take, whether you're into the spiritual side, the psychological benefits, or just connecting with ancient wisdom. There's something there for everyone.
So if someone's listening and thinking, okay, I'm intrigued, where do they begin? Is it as simple as grabbing some sea salt and sprinkling it around?
It can be, but the key is to be mindful. What do you want to get out of it? Purification, protection, connection. Once you know your intention, then you can explore different methods and see what feels right.
So it's like setting an intention, just like with meditation or mindfulness.
Exactly. And there's no right or wrong way. It's about finding what's authentic for you.
Creating your own personal ritual, using old wisdom, but tailoring it to your own needs.
And that's what makes it so powerful. It blends tradition with individual expression.
You mentioned earlier that putting salt at entrances is common in some cultures. What are some other ways people use salt in rituals around the world?
Oh, there are so many. In some cultures, they bless newborns with salt for purity and protection. Some use it in weddings to represent a strong, lasting marriage, and some indigenous traditions use it to cleanse sacred places and objects, bringing back balance.
Those are beautiful examples of how salt goes beyond practical use, becoming a symbol of something much deeper.
Absolutely. It's like a universal language of intention and belief. That's what makes exploring this so enriching. You get a glimpse into different cultures and see how something simple, like salt, can hold such deep, varied meaning.
It reminds us that even in our modern world, there's so much wisdom to learn from the past. It's incredible how one simple thing can mean so much in so many different cultures. You mentioned salt being used in weddings earlier.
Oh yeah, it's a powerful symbol. Some cultures have the couple actually share some salt during the ceremony.
To show they're united.
Exactly. It's like saying, we're in this together, through thick and thin. Salt, it lasts, it endures.
So it represents that lasting bond, facing the tough times as a team. Really beautiful imagery.
And, it brings us back to what we've been exploring today. Those sea salt rituals, in all their forms, give us a real way to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Whether it's history, spirituality, or just wanting to feel good, it all ties together.
I think so. They're like a framework for meaning and purpose, even when life feels crazy and busy.
They remind us that we're not alone in this. We're part of something bigger, something that goes beyond just us.
Exactly. They connect us to something ancient, something timeless, a shared human experience that goes beyond any one culture.
And that's so important nowadays when things feel so divided. These rituals show a kind of unity, like we all want the same things deep down.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing we're all connected, all human. And I think we can all benefit from that no matter what we believe or where we come from.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into these sea salt rituals, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I'd say this. Sea salt rituals are more than just old superstitions. They show how much humans crave meaning, connection, well-being. And they remind us that even simple things like salt can become incredibly meaningful when we imbue them with our intention and belief.
That's a perfect way to put it. So to everyone listening, if any of this has sparked your curiosity, don't hesitate to explore these practices. See what they're all about.
You might find a new way to bring peace into your life or connect with history and traditions that make life feel richer.
Who knows? Maybe you'll even create your own ritual using what you've learned. It's all about that journey of discovery.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and maybe add a little sprinkle of salt to your life.
Happy diving, everyone!
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're above